Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irliana Samsara. Oh my goodness, it's episode 117. How did I do that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm really excited today because, not just because it's Leo season, of course, right? But I have an outrageous guest. Our guest today is Alice Sparkly Cat. And I just saying your name, Alice, I get chills. So we're going to be in for a really cool conversation. And as you guys know, I always try to bring you different aspects of astrology and different people that, bring a lot to show us, how vast this subject is. And so I thanks to Demetrius Begley, Demetrius, yay, who's been on, as you guys know, thanks to him, I met Alice, and she agreed to do an interview. So welcome, Alice. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It's good to meet you. Happy Leo season. Congrats on 116 episodes too. Wow.
Oh, God, I know. Mercury and Virgo, do you think? No.
Yeah. I'm the opposite of Mercury and Pisces.
Oh, no wonder you wrote this mystical book. Oh my goodness. Well, that explains everything, or at least some.
LOL.
All right, so a little bit about Alice. Okay. Alice is obviously an astrologer. They use astrology to rechart. This is what I want you to know. To rechart. All right, so all right, everybody, let this in. They use astrology to rechart a history of the subconscious, redefine the body in the world, and reimagine history as a collective memory. Their astrological work has inhabited MoMA, which is, for those of you who are not New Yorkers, the Museum of Modern Art, one of the world's great art museums, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, another world-class museum, and the Brooklyn Museum, another three, right? They're the author of Post-Colonial Astrology, which just came out May 2021. They've written other books, but this one is a biggie. In the world of, honestly, Alice, in the world of astrology books, I was just saying to Alice before we got on, this is not your mother's astrology book. This is not your father's astrology book. Obviously, what I just said is that just their little introduction is just mind-blowing. We're looking at astrology, it's as if you arrived in a spaceship and you're telling us about astrology, and it's this whole other dimension that I don't think anybody has ever explored. So we're just gonna dig right in. So before I always Alice, I always like to ask people who are on the show, how did you discover astrology? What was that like for you? And then we'll ask you, why did you write this book? So
Yeah.
Go ahead, take it away.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I got into astrology around 2015, 2014, that kind of time period. And I mean, I think a lot of people find astrology when they're going through crisis. So I was going through some personal crisis, it's too much to get into, but I was just, I was really depressed. So I think I got into it through Googling some things. Back then there was Yahoo Answers. That was kind of where a lot of people were posting about astrology. There's some forums also. So I just got into it through that kind of world, and got deeper into it, started reading books about astrology. I would go to the Strand, go to East Village Books, and just kind of look for astrology books. They had some pretty big sections, actually. I went back and their astrology section somehow shrank, which is interesting because it's more popular now. And then so I'm oh, hey, maybe these books, they're just not going to secondhand bookstores so much or something like that. But yeah, that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Cool. So it was you fell into the rabbit hole, and then, as we all know, those of us who can't get enough.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Who needs a social life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been 7 years.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, it feels not so long.
Yeah, time is definitely collapsing, I think. And so you, you know, you see people, you do sessions, you find time to write. So, you know, as you probably started doing sessions, or what came first, the sessions or the writing? Just curious.
It was definitely the sessions, like working with people one-on-one. And then, I mean, it was just with my friends. It was with people I already knew, kind of thing. But like, I feel like that's a big part of how I learned astrology too, is just talking about it with people, how people experience their charts, how people read their charts. So yeah, that's a big part of it too.
Wow, that's awesome. So, in terms of, I'm just curious, like, why the book? Like, what prompted you? Because you've written, wrote some really cool. Everybody, all right. Their website is Alice Sparkly Cat with a K, sparklycat.com. I'll put it in the chat box below. But there is a where you can, of course, order the book, the newest book, but you started writing really cool worksheets too, but then you wrote some other things, and then you wrote this book, Post-Colonial Astrology.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I self-published 2 books. It's like astrology and storytelling. So that's where you take your natal chart and you try to create a piece of fiction from it. It's really fun. It's just a workbook. Yeah, and there's planetary alignment for mental bliss. Where it's a bunch of worksheets that you can work through it, like Jupiter return, Saturn returns, like things like that. And then yeah, basically I like the book Post-Colonial Astrology came from the zine that I made about just tracing back the etymologies of the moon and Saturn. And then I like that became the book, like those chapters, like they were extended, they were edited, and then we looked at the 7 traditional archetypes in astrology, like in post-colonial astrology. But it started from another book project.
Is when you said 7 traditional planets, are you, do you consider yourself, or did you study the traditional astrology? Is that kind of like the foundation of your work?
I'm not a traditional astrologer, but the reason why we focus on the traditional planets is because like the modern planets, they haven't been used for long enough for me to really trace back anything. So that's why we focus on the 7 traditional ones.
Yeah, as we know, we can get plenty of everything through the 7. After 20 years of being a modern astrologer, I enrolled in Achyuta Bhavadas's Nightlight Astrology, and so I'm in year 1 and 2 concurrently, and you know he's very passionate about, you know, that you don't even need the outers, you can really get everything you need to know, like the ancients did, you know, through the 7. And that was a hard one for me to break, me being very stubborn, but I see the value of what you're saying. So you're I'm gonna just read a little, you know, from your website, the little blurb that you had about the book. As a matter of fact, I can even just, why don't I show it on the screen? And then that's even better. Cool. So let me pull that up. And here it is. So it says about I love the book cover, by the way. Post-Colonial Astrology, reading the planets through capital, power, and labor. And it says that astrology is a language that millennials, Gen Zers, and many others continue to build fluency in and look to inform their everyday lives, decisions, and relationships. But so much more than a fad, astrology is an intersectional, political, and magical language with a cross-cultural history that informs our relationships to the planets. According to Brooklyn-based astrologer Alice Sparkly Cat, astrology is the ideal magical lens through which we can parse the harsh neoliberal and colonial systems of power that harm marginalized people. It's these very systems that misappropriate the language, symbols, and wisdom of the planets to prioritize self over the collective. We could just stop there.
Oh, thanks for reading that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're an incredible writer. You're a writer and a visionary that just happens to be in like in an astrology body, you know, but I mean, this is like so deep, and I feel so strongly the influence of well, certainly Pluto and Capricorn, and then, last year, you must have written much of this book last year when we were going through, you know,
It's
Hell on Wheels.
true. Yeah. And I wrote like 2 sections and then, well, yeah, I wrote like maybe 1 section and then the conclusion last year during the pandemic. And
Wow.
some of it was like kind of before the pandemic.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's just so rich. And, you know, I think about last year, not just with the pandemic, but like George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And, you know, we're seeing this deconstruction, you know, Pluto doing its thing, deconstructing. The USA is in the, it's at 20, it retrograded, Pluto retrograded, I think it was 26 degrees, 42 minutes. And I looked that up and it's interesting because that is the very degree of where we had the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775.
Yeah, what's the battle?
Yeah, the first battle of the Revolution was that battle.
Oh, I see.
And that's where Pluto is right now. And but it's in retrograde, so it's like looking back, you know, looking forward, you know, purging and yeah, all that toxicity coming up. So I can see how that would have influenced your writing, but I know I just want to hear from you more about, you know, about all of it. It's so deep. I mean, just reading your introduction, I was like, I have never read an introduction like that. I was flabbergasted. I couldn't even, I mean, one paragraph, it's like you could just meditate on that for like days, you know? It's really deep.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and what kind of started the book was like all these questions from community. So I think there's a lot of people working with astrology, like in a similar way as me, like, you know, just kind of all these questions around like, hey, like what's Western astrology? Why is it Western? Like, yeah, people are kind of debating like tropical astrology, sidereal all the time. People are like really kind of wondering like, you know, if we're using this climate-based astrology, what's happening with climate change. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people who are doing astrology, like practitioners, like they're really interested in these questions too.
Yeah, and the how, I'm just curious, like how do we decode, you know, because we're so in it, it's like, yeah, we're finally, the fish has been swimming in dirty water for hundreds of years and we're finally realizing, hey, you know what, this water's dirty, you know, that we're finally waking up. And but like you were saying, you know, we're still in it, we're post-colonial, but we're still dealing with colonialism, you know, yeah, it's collapsing. And you know, how do we, because we've been so inundated and, you know, it's been so much a part of us unconsciously, how do we decode the planets from a post-colonial perspective? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about limiting like what Western astrology can talk about, because it's like, it's really useful for talking about pain. It's really useful for talking about how our identities are shaped by the West. But it's like, it's not universal. It doesn't talk about everything. So I think that we can really use Western astrology to talk about the West. What's our relationships to it? How can we be held accountable to it? How, how do we change it? In post-colonialism, like, it's just like a vision. Actually, it tries to imagine that the world can be post-colonialism. Yeah, it's not something that's happened yet. It's just a way of imagining the future. Like that's kind of what post-colonialism is about.
For you. And what do you see as possible with and where we're free of this toxicity, you know, all of the hundreds and hundreds of years? I mean, I remember that when Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto lined up at, what was it, 12 degrees, well, Saturn, Pluto lined up at 12 degrees of Capricorn on January 12th of it's been over a year and a half now. And that was, and with the South Node there in Capricorn, that we hadn't seen that since 1517. And so in history, you know, we look back, well, the Spanish destroyed the Maya, like there's all that colonialist, you know, it really got stepped up. And, you know, it's just been a hellacious, you know, ride. So yeah, so here, and then, you know, here you come and you're like, okay, let's just take this off and then start imagining, instead of just fighting, like what's, you know, what are we getting rid of, but then what are we embracing when Pluto purges us from all this toxicity and colonialist toxicity, you know, what's left?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because it's like, I mean, we have the same relationships we do now. Also, I mean, and what I mean by that is I think that like sometimes we're like, hey, let's just get rid of colonialism. It like how it's imagined in movies or something. It's like, oh, it's gonna be this big violent catharsis, and then we'll start from ground zero or something. But I don't think it really works like that. Like, yeah, it's about kind of like remaking the world that we have now and answering to that world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it said on your, I like this also on your page, this is not a learn your sun sign introductory guide. Oh, hell no, as we have seen from those few words in the introduction. This book is, like you said, it's a history and a toolkit. So it's not just talking about it. It's like what I love is that people can actually engage and use this book and like get in there with themselves
yeah, that was important to me because the book is written for astrologers. It's not for people who are like trying to like have a history of astrology or anything. It's for astrologers who practice astrology. And I mean, yeah, it's not like, you know, it's not about sun signs, which I think sun sign astrology is really useful for some things, but like there's nothing technical in the book too. So if you're new to astrology, like it's accessible to you also.
Yeah, so it's new to it. So people who are just delving in, it's giving them you know, this whole new lens with which to see astrology. This is just so huge. And I feel this book is just so, you know, honestly, I know it might sound bombastic to say this, but I thought about Richard Tarnas's book, Cosmos and Psyche. For those of you who are new to astrology, this book, as soon as it was published in around 2006, it was considered a classic. And yes, it's a very important book to read if you're getting more and more into astrology. And it's also great to give intellectual friends who poo-poo astrology. But I honestly, Alice, I feel that your book is like in that category, that it's
oh my God, that's such a compliment.
No, real, I feel emotional saying it is that important.
Wow. I feel like Leos are so good at compliments. I'm like,
but it's true. I mean, it really is. I just get chills, like,
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and then the other thing I want to ask you is, when you talked in the book, you said in one chapter you talk about the disparate cultural applications of the planet Saturn. You know, like, let's talk about, because Saturn has been such a huge player, you know, and it still is, right? It's still in Aquarius, traditional astrology. Saturn is also, you know, rules Aquarius as well. So Saturn's not done with us yet with this huge reset. So why don't we just spend a little time talking about that, you know, the planet Saturn, and how does this play into everything?
Yeah, because like Saturn was the one I started with, so I was really interested in Saturn because I mean I have an angular Saturn, and then so yeah, I was just interested in the planet, and then it's so dual, like there's a duality to Saturn. It's, I mean, you know, it's thought of as both a father and a son. It's the son of Uranus, the father of Jupiter, things like that. But yeah, and it's, I mean, there's just so much contradiction in Saturn. It's associated with, and this is from, like, I can't remember what it's from this book called like Saturn's Melancholy or something. It's associated with like low-born people and also the elites. So there's so much duality just in terms of what's talking about. Like, so I was exploring Saturn. It's like, I mean, what is it trying to say? So it's a little bit about class, but it's really about land, because like Saturn, it really parallels the moon, which is about like, yeah, just the borders, like kind of boundaries. So like Saturn, it's so much about citizenship actually.
Yeah, it is. And also the qualities of Saturn, like you were saying, that it's been you know, there's been political agendas and, you know, and there's been misuse and abuse of power, and how that intimately is connected with well, racism and capitalism. And, you know, that's no surprise. We, you know, back in the, 50 years ago, I forget the name of the book, but it was one of Martin Luther King's books. And I remember taking it out of the library and reading it. I'm like, oh my God, 50 years have passed and we're still talking about this stuff. But he identified how, you know, racism and capitalism are intertwined, and it's really, you know, he laid out a really profound case for that, and I never forgot that. So I'm just thinking about, that's just what's coming to mind for me right now.
Yeah. I feel like the luminaries, the sun and moon and Saturn, like they actually talk a lot about class. They actually talk a lot about money.
How do they talk about money? How do you see that? Like the sun, we'll just start with the sun and the moon, and then we can
because the sun and the moon, like they're about gold and silver. So like on one hand, like you have gold, which is this, like, you know, this substance, is this metal that like kind of accumulates value through hoarding. Gold's not really circulated. It's kind of like hoarded by the church, by kings, given as gifts sometimes. A lot of the gold that we have, it was mined out of South Africa, and it's reburied back into the ground in these financial capitals like New York and London. And then silver is very different. Like silver accumulates value through circulation. So then it's associated with foreigners sometimes. It's like, yeah, it's a different type of money.
I never thought of it like that. Oh my God, you are so brilliant. I'm just so blown away. Yeah. Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that. And I was just researching, like, yeah, gold and silver. And it's like, oh man, like, yeah, they actually work really differently.
Yeah, and it's, I know what we've been studying in ancient astrology is that the sun represents the solar principles, like the unchanging conditions of life, you know, the things that maintain constancy. And like you said about gold, like physical gold being, you know, kings and such, and governments, and keeping it in, you know, locked up in banks, and it's unchanging. It's like but then silver circulates through, you know, well, in the old days, of course, people had silver dollars in their pocket, but it moves and circulates just like the moon is ever changing. So I'm never going to look at the sun and the moon again the same way after you said that. That is so cool. Tell us more. Keep going. I want to hear. I don't want to talk. I want to hear you talk.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, that's currency. Like that's the sun and moon. But then there's Saturn too, which is not currency. Like Saturn's about the land, which is it's a whole other thing. It's a whole other way of keeping value. So like one thing that I found out is that for the Romans, like currency, it was like seen as lesser value because foreigners could obtain currency, but land, it was this kind of special value. And so like there's a lot of, I mean, you know, these ideas, they're still with us. There's a lot of ideas around xenophobia and like currency. There's a lot of anti-Semitic ideas around currency also. And then, there's ideas that we have around like blood being connected to soil. So like these things, I'm like, whoa, like when we talk about Saturn representing what it does, and we talk about the moon representing what it does, like, I mean, we're kind of reacting against those ideas too.
Yeah. I never thought about that. You said about blood and soil, like linked. Wow. Wow. That's mind blowing. I love that. And then you said too about, you know, there's like political agendas with Saturn, you know, then it's like there's political agendas that get in there, and there's like all the power brokers and the capital interests, and I think of Saturn as like separation, you know, so it's like drawing these, you could say, I guess, class lines, divisions of race and, you know, gender and demographics and such. You know, that's what comes to mind for me. But and then I love when one of the things you said here was that we see this misappropriation of Saturn's wisdom embodied by the Jeffersonian vision of a white landowning state that mythologizes an imaginary agrarian golden age that perpetuated violence against marginalized bodies. Wow.
Yeah, because I was looking at like Saturn in just Roman poems, and it's like a satirical tool, the golden age. It's used to compare and contrast to like current day, to criticize it. And then yeah, what kind of happened on this land is like there's this like kind of I ideal of the self-sustaining farmer, like that idea was used to colonize the land. And is still used to colonize the land. And I'm like, oh, whoa, like, you know, that's Saturn. It's, yeah, it's changed a lot since the Roman times. It's used for very different purposes.
Mm. Can you talk a little bit more about that? That's fascinating.
Yeah, I guess it's just like the way that role reversals have changed over time. Because, yeah, I mean, yeah, like the way that like Saturn was celebrated, it's so much about like people exchanging costumes. It's the Saturnalia. But
Right,
then the way that,
Saturnalia. Yeah.
yeah, that people in this country like just kind of like dress up as like racial others in costume, like that's Saturn too, and it looks really different over here.
Mm. Yeah, because if people who are in or members of marginalized communities, you know, how do they deal with that? That's like been hoisted on them, this whole way of, yeah, that whole archetype and everything, like you said, in the Western world that it stood for. So you know, what does one do with that, you know? And
Yeah,
then how do they reinvent that into something that's powerful, that can, like, you know, bring about a you know, communities of care, as you phrase that.
yeah. So with Saturn, like it's helpful to know, like I mean, when I talk with clients about their Saturns, I talk about like role reversals, like, hey, like, you know, where are the conflicts that you're anticipating, things like that.
Conflict and role reversal. Wow.
Yeah.
And then gender, like with Venus, you know, here we're halfway through, you know, Venus's I'm sorry, Uranus in Venus's sign of Taurus. And that is like all the great, you know, Uranus and Aries. We had all the, you know, LGBT marriage, Supreme Court ruling, you know, all of the, in the United States, you know, it was this huge shift. And now and transgender and non-binary, and it all just, you know, came out, birthed. And then the whole, you know, how I see the Taurus, Uranus and Taurus is like saying, okay, we have these outrageous, you know, this new way of being, and now let's ground that, and it becomes our value system. It's how we connect with each other in this new paradigm. And so, and you talk about Venus and gender evolution. So you know, here we are within days of about a week from now, a little over a week, Uranus is going to retrograde and go back till January in a retrograde in that Venus sign. So Venus ruled Taurus. So I'm just wondering, you know, what that might look like, and if you could just talk about that, you know, and Venus's gender evolution.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what's coming with Uranus. Yeah, because I feel like people with Uranus and Aquarius are really feeling it because it's their Uranus square moment. So I mean, I do hear a lot of people talking about the need for reparations and wealth redistribution, especially with people that age. I think that they're actually like actively working on it. And you know, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but I don't know what's coming. Yeah, with Venus, so like Venus and Mars, they're read in opposition to each other because the book, it takes the luminaries and reads it with Saturn, and then takes Venus and reads it with Mars, Mercury with Jupiter. So it reads the planets in opposition to the planet that rules the sign opposing it. And then with Venus and Mars, like we go into gender, and like my assumption when researching that was, oh, like we're going to talk about sexuality, but then like that's not what happened. Like I found out, well, gender, it's not really made to talk about individual experience, it's actually made to talk about war. And then so I was finding like, oh man, like, you know, when cities, they're under siege, when they're like, you know, they're gendered, they become really gendered. So the Venus stuff, like it, yeah, it talks about gender, but it's mostly about like the difference between like civil society and then like the state of exception. So it's really talking about the border. Like that's what the Venus and Mars chapter is talking about. And that's why it's called power. Yeah, power, it functions through gender, but also through the border, and then they're kind of like maintained in similar ways. So yeah, that's kind of the Venus and Mars stuff.
Wow, fascinating. I love that. What other, any other potent conversations you want to, I love that word used, like potent conversations, because they are. I mean, any one of these is like a deep rabbit hole. So this book gives you like 100 rabbit holes. Yeah, I mean, I can see your book being like a required reading and, you know, Kepler College and like all these places that are teaching astrology now. You know, we have this outrageous renaissance of knowledge, you know, and astrology being rekindled and rediscovered by the masses. And I just think it's just such a, because we're at that pivotal point, and because it's as a result of this whole colonialist fabric being toppled, you know, and then here's your book comes along. It's like, oh my God, this is like required. I just feel it's like essential reading. I think everybody needs to see this. And what better time, because we're in our Gemini Sagittarius eclipse axis with the North Node in Gemini is like, hey, we have to be open to new experiences. It's important for the collective evolution to see things differently and to open up our minds, you know, and check out other points of view that are not the ones that we, you know, grew up with or just want to hang on to. So this is like, it's perfect.
Cool. Yeah. Oh my God, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, you asked a question, but I can't remember it. Actually.
Oh, no, I can't either.
Oh, okay, cool.
I was just saying the potent conversations. Yeah, this is just one of many potent conversations. I really feel obviously very strongly Gen Z and millennials have really jumped on the astrology bandwagon, which is awesome. And
yeah,
then
people are into it.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering, you know, like people who are, you know, like more my age, you know, even though I'll always be a kid, you know, that Leo thing, right? Big kid. But I wonder, you know, what might be said to somebody who is a baby boomer age, you know, or just somebody who had more, you know, where do they fit in? Because that's the population that's aging. You know, and it's like, what kind of future could they step into? You know, that's what I wonder about. You know, how can we bring this to them? Because I mean, this is where the planet's going, whether people like it or not. You know, Pluto's just taking this stuff down, and we have no say in the matter. You know, it's like, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like a lot of people getting into astrology, they look really different from a lot of people who have been doing astrology. Like it's more diverse, it's more queer. So I mean, I feel like you know, it's nothing new. Like queer people have been around forever, and then you know, people of color have been around forever too. So it is something that's contributing to astrology. It's something that's changing it, but contributing to it too. Yeah.
I know, I love the work that you are doing, Chani Nicholas, you know, just Demetrius with the Queer Astrology Conference and Black Astrology Conference. You know, this to me is like the very, very forefront. It's a very forefront conversation, and it's definitely leading. And no matter where we are in gender or race or whatever, it's like it's important that we have to be cognizant of that, you know, wherever we are in that spectrum, sexually, race, you know, whatever, gender. It's just because that is it is we're definitely in the unknown, you know, and and nobody knows how this is all going to turn out, you know. But being in that unknown and just being like, I love the fact that your book is helping. It's like saying, guess what, you we've been under this veil and we didn't even know we were under it. You know, it's like Terence McKenna, the great visionary. He used to say, you know, we're unaware of our own ignorance.
Oh wow, I love that quote.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write it down.
And when I read your book, I mean, this is what I became present to. It's like, oh my God, you know, like we think that we know all about astrology, and then you come along. It's like you're like Toto pulling back the curtain on the wizard. Is like, guess what? There's this other you're not aware of. And like, oh, now I'm seeing astrology through this whole different lens, and it's
oh cool. Yeah, thanks for saying that, because yeah, I was talking to my partner about how I'm so gullible. I'm like, I feel like I'm very veiled.
But in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, right? Yeah, you live in New York City. It's like, okay, you can't be too gullible, right?
I see.
Get home safe from the subway
Yeah.
or whatever. No, but yeah. Hey, look, you know, the gullible thing is, well, you know, of course, when all those years I lived in New York, it's like, oh my God, you know, you can't be gullible. You have to be cool because people are gonna run you over. But then we lose something. We lose our humanity and our sense of wonder and our heart and our curiosity because we have to be like cool.
Oh, I'm very gullible. That's my Mercury in Pisces. Yeah.
I know I relate. I don't have Mercury in Pisces, but I definitely I always want to, you know, give people the benefit of the doubt, and you know, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it does give it keeps doors open and opens doors. And how are we going to evolve if we're not on some level gullible? Or if you want to, even the word has like such a bad connotation, you know, gullible. Oh my God, this guy's an idiot, you know. It's like, no. But anyway, yeah. So what do you see for the future? Are you just needing to take a break from having written this book, but maybe not? I mean, I don't know, just curious. Do you have any ideas for other books, or are you, you know, what's going on with anything in that direction?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I have some ideas that I would love to make into books. I'm doing a class this month called Writing Astrology. I'm excited for that because I feel like that's where like a lot of people find a sense of creativity with astrology, is like writing, because it's a language. So we're reshaping astrology when we use it, and part of that is through writing. So I'm excited to do that course with people. But I mean, mostly just kind of hanging out for the summer, like taking it easy. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I wrote a book about 7-8 years ago, and I know how much effort it took me a year to write the book. So yeah, you definitely want to chill, and I'm sure I have a feeling you'll be writing more. But tell us more about this course, and if they go to the AliceSparklyCat.com, and then that Alice and then Sparkly SPARKLY cat.com. And is there they can sign up for the course? I love that idea, writing your story.
Yeah. So I mean, it's astrology, it's autobiography, it's delineation, it's horoscopes. So that's basically what we're working on. But the class is actually full. So I don't have a sign up link. I'm gonna run it again and maybe make it into a video series, but I'm not sure what that looks like right now. But yeah, that's just why I'm excited on personally. Yeah.
Maybe a few months down the road you'll be offering it again.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
And then people could always just contact you, and you can stay in touch with them. And
exactly, yeah. If you sign up for my mailing list, you'll be the first ones to know about when the course opens up again.
Cool. So they can just jump on your website and add their name to the mailing list and keep on top of that. Excellent. Oh, that's wonderful. So yeah, I appreciate you being on with us and giving us your time, Alice.
No, thank you.
Grateful.
Yeah, same. Very grateful for you, like hanging out with me for a little bit, like talking to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So anything else before we wrap up? Any closing shares or anything you want to say?
I don't think so. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, the book, it's out. You can order on my website. There'll be an audio link or audiobook out too. So I'm gonna link it like pretty soon. I just have to edit my website, but like yeah, that's it.
Oh, neat. An audio book. That's so cool.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yay, audio. So people
yeah,
can, if they're riding in their car or whatever, or they'll prefer
right.
to hear rather than read.
Yeah, if you're blind, like yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You take care of everyone. That's what's so cool about you. It's always about, you know, humanity and yeah, this is definitely part of the astrology. I think you are a huge pillar in this astrology revival with this book. So really, really grateful to all the communities, all of humanity, not just BIPOC and LGBT, but you know, everybody. We're just all exploring these new concepts from different positions, and it's just it's incredible. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for you, and I'm sure I
Yeah.
speak for many people who say that. So
Well, thank you.
yay, as the Leo says. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and
Oh,
hey,
thank you.
any other new things you got coming on, you are always welcome back, and I'd love to hear all of us, you know, what you're next up to. So we'll stay in touch.
Cool.
And,
Yeah, please do.
we'll do that. So, all right, my dear. Well, I will, I guess we'll just, yeah, we'll leave it like that for now. And everybody, thank you so much for all for listening. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the new moon very, very short. The next episode will be the new moon in Leo, of course, my favorite lunation. But until then, we just wish everybody the best and lots of fun and joy, and just be a big kid. You know, it's still Leo season. We're in the thick of it. So be outrageous, be creative, and shine our light. So with that, I bid everyone adieu until the next time. This is Irliana Samsara, StarSound Astrology, StarSound Speaks. Thank you all so much for listening. Take care now. See you next time.